Hi all and welcome to the cabin. Today we're here at our local club where a bunch of guys are playing a bolt action game, but I brought Erik with me, who you might remember from our battle report that we did a while ago for Necromunda, and the two of us are going to play a game of Warzone Eternal. We both went in for the Kickstarter and finally got our pledges a couple of months ago. Well, we finished painting up our forces and today we're going to play our very first game. So, let's get to it. Let's determine allegiance. Algeroth gets an 18 plus 10, which is 28. So, yeah, you don't even have to roll, but go ahead. That's a 20. It's Algeroth versus Bauhaus today, and we're playing with 40 deployment points. For my Algeroth force, I have a Centurion with the Carcass Suit, Subdermal Implants, and Invoke Frenzy assets, a Necromutant Leader, a Necromutant Trooper, a Necromutant Tormentor support unit, 3 Undead Legionnaire Troopers, and a Razid with Nazgaroth, which has the Self-Repair asset.
In the Bauhaus force, we have 3 Venusian Rangers. We have the leader over here with the fist. We have a ranger with a heavy machine gun over here, and then a regular trooper over here. We also have 2 blitzers, 1 trooper and 1 operator, and 2 Etuil Mortant here and here, who are both troopers. Since this is the Force of Light, there is also a Redemption Assassin who will be helping out. The Redemption Assassin also have cybernetic power arms, or a cybernetic power arm. And apart from that, they rely on the reliability and fire support Bauhaus assets, as well as the Intel misdirection general asset.
Here's the roll to determine the deployment type. It's a 2, so that means standard deployment.
So the next step is to figure out what we're doing here. So we're rolling the scenario.
That's a 12.
Which means key positions.
Okay, so in key positions we have 3 scenario objectives set up along the center line of the board. Each player that controls one of these objectives by doing a successful interaction action with them and doing a successful leadership test will gain 1 victory point at the end phase of each turn, except for the first turn. There's also a secret primary objective that we have to choose now and not tell each other about. If we both end up choosing the same at the end of turn 5, if one of us holds that secret objective, that person will gain an additional point, but only if we chose the same one. And here we have the 3 objective markers set up along the center line, as well as all of the terrain. We decided that each and every terrain piece will count as giving cover, and these 3 features also count as zones with the rough trait. So that means that troops moving through them will halve their movement. And this little piece close to the middle has the rough trait on this side and then the dangerous trait on that side. Time to roll off for deployment. Dark Legion gets a 17 and Bauhaus gets a 16, so you get to choose.
So since it's a standard deployment, we have these strips along the sides, and I'll simply just choose this side. So I selected Hold Ground and Sacrifice as my 2 secondary objectives. Hold Ground means that I need to keep Robin's units further away than 4 inches from a deployment zone at the end of the turn. And the Sacrifice means that I need to have a trooper in close combat engage in close combat with one of Robin's units that is worth more than mine in BP, and I can score each of those twice throughout the game.
So I also chose the hold ground secondary objective, so we will both try to make sure that our opponent doesn't get to our deployment zone. And then I also chose the Servant of Darkness special one, which is called Send a Message. And that means that I need to get one of my leaders into melee and do a strike action and kill one of Erik's units. If I do that from turn 2 to 5, I can get an additional victory points for a maximum of 2 points.
So I'll deploy 4 of my units, and I think I'll place my blitzers over here. And I think I will have my redemption assassin over here. And I think one of the rangers can go right here.
All right, so I deploy all of my forces at the same time now. So let's see, I think I will put the Reside somewhere here in the middle. And then Centurion could be over here. And the Necromutant leader could be here on this side. Then we're gonna put the Tormentor, he could be over here on this side. And the regular Necromutant somewhere here. And then we'll put the Undead Legionnaires over here on this side. Yeah.
So I have 4 units left. I'll take the Etuiles Mortants, and I think I'll place them here. 1 over there and 1 over there. And I think I will have the heavy machine gun ranger over here. No, over there. And we'll have the other ranger over here. And due to the Redemption Assassin's advanced deployment, I can move that up to 6 inches. So this is 4, and then another 2. There we go.
All right, so I have the first activation since Erik got to deploy his forces first. So I'll start by activating the Reside. And his first action will be a shooting action, and his Nazgaroth weapon has the Burst 3 special rule, which means that I could fire 3 shots at different targets within a 4-inch of each other. So I will be shooting at your Venusian Ranger there, 2 shots at him, and then 1 shot at your Etoile Mortante next to him. So I'll start with the first shot into the Venusian Ranger then. I have a missile weapon skill of 12, and it's within 20 about inches, so it's within the short distance of 24, which means I get +0 to the test. And you are not obstructed. Every line of sight point is available to me. So that would be a pure missile weapon 12 test then. Here we go, 12. And I make it with a 4. I have a damage of 15. What's your armor?
22.
So that's a 7 for you to roll, right?
Okay. 2.
So you make it.
Yep. I succeeded by 5.
Succeeded.
But I need more than 5 to...
But if you succeed by 6, you will ignore the pin counter,
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
And then it's the second shot, also into him. Pure 12.
Yep.
Yeah. 8, I make it. And then you need to roll...
Less than 7. 3. 3.
You make it by 4, so that's another pin counter, but you only get 1. And then I shoot into the Étoile Mortante. Does she have a defense rating?
Yes, -2.
-2. And I could see all 3 in the middle, but 1 or 2 on the sides there are obstructed. So you would get light obstruction, which is another -2.
But I also have the evasive, which I believe is on top of the -2, so that's another -2, so -4.
-6.
So -6 in total, yes.
So my 12 goes down to a 6. I get an 8, so nothing on her.
So that's your first action in your first activation.
We'll do the same thing again then. I think I'll do all 3 shots of the burst into the Venusian Ranger this time.
So I believe I can dive for cover as a reaction to that.
Yeah, sure.
So then I add a reaction counter to the Ranger.
Exactly.
And I get +2 to my armor rating if it hits.
So the test is still 12.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see. That is a 16, so I failed the first one. Second shot, 9. We made it for that one. And
so
then...
it's 9 for me. 2.
You make it by 7, so nothing happens.
Right.
And the last shot, same thing again. 12. I miss on a 19, and that is actually a critical failure. So I'm gonna get a reload counter on the Razid. And that was my final action for this activation.
So my first action in my first activation is to move the Redemption Assassin. And their movement score is 6, so I can comfortably move into base contact with this. And I will use my second action to interact with the marker. So I will roll a leadership test. So I have leadership 15. So that's a 3.
You got a 3, nice.
And that's my first activation.
Nicely done. All right, so my next activation will be for the Centurion. So we'll put an activation counter there. And I will start with a move action, and he has a move of 5. So I'm gonna take him up to this point right there. I'll do the final inch here as a reposition move. So I'm gonna attempt to do a command action. Leadership for the Centurion is 15. So I make it. So that means I could do one action with the regular Necromutant, and the regular Necromutant has a move of 4, so I will move him up to 4 inches right there.
So for my second activation, I will activate my regular Blitzer. I will simply move twice, so first 4. And then another 4. So I'll move up to here.
All right, my next activation will be the regular Necromutant that I just commanded with the Centurion. So there we go. His first action is a move. He has 4-inch move, so I'll put him right up here. And then we said this one was rough, so it halves the movement. So I can only do 2 inches up. That will bring him to right about there.
My next activation will be the other Blitzer, the operator over here. So I'll activate that. So it's within 15. Which is the short range stat for both of its weapons. So I believe I will simply use my SMG, which has burst 2. So this relevant skill is 13. And I believe that there is no further modification. It's a 4, so that's a hit.
We missed filming the armor test here, but I made it by more than 5.
The second shot of the same, since it is burst, is a 17, so that's a miss. For my second action, I will just move 4 inches.
All right, so for the next activation, I'm doing the Necromutant with the Tormentor. I will move him up 4 inches to about that spot. I've checked we're within 10 inches there. So I get a +3 to the test, and I have 12 in missile weapon skill, so that's a 15. Do you have any defense rating there?
Yes, -1.
Yes, I make it with a 6. Okay, so what armor do you have?
21.
21, and this has a damage of 14. So you need to roll 7 or less for this test.
I do not succeed, it's a 20.
Oh, it's a 20. So you lose the test by 13.
Yes, so since it took 2 wounds and is pinned, I don't bother with the pin token because it loses all its 2 wounds and is removed as a casualty. So for my next activation, I will activate one of my Étoile Mortants. So I'll activate this one to move twice, which means a 10-inch move. There, and that is my turn.
All right, my penultimate activation will be the Necromutant Leader, and I will start with a shoot action against your Venusian Ranger there with the heavy machine gun. I'm within about 21 inches, so that would be the long range. And I think you have light obstruction. I think at least 1 point on the base is blocked.
So Venetian Rangers have camouflage 1, meaning that they get a bonus 1
when they're obstructed.
Yes.
So you get -3 from the obstruction, and I get -2 because I'm at the long range with my Belzarak assault rifle. So that is a -5 in total to my missile weapon skill, which is 12, so that would be a 7 or under. I do not make it with a 10. My second action will be the same. So I'll fire again, 7 or under. I do not make it with a 16.
So since this unit was targeted by enemy shooting, they will react by shooting back with a counterattack. So the recoil 4 means that it's 4 more difficult to succeed, but the burst 3 means that they can shoot 3 times.
3 times, yeah. So are you within long or short range of me?
Well, so short range is 24.
You should be within that because I was 21 before.
Yes.
So you're within short. Then there's no penalty.
Okay.
And do I have any obstruction?
I believe you have 1, so the same that I got.
Okay. So that's a -4 and then a -2, so a -6.
Yes.
And what's your base? Your base is
14.
12.
So
14, sorry.
So 8.
8.
Okay, so first roll. Natural 20.
Ooh, that's, isn't that a crit fail? Okay, we just checked it, and since you're doing multiple shoot action tests, it says that you could continue, but then the effects are applied after you finish.
Yes.
So there are 2 more shots for you to do then.
Yep, and it's still 8 and below. So that's a 3, so
That's
success.
1 success. Okay, so my armor is 22, and your damage is
14.
14, and no other modifiers. So I need to roll an 8 or under to avoid getting wounds. Okay, here we go. 3, that's 5 under the target. So a pinned counter.
And it's still 8 and below. So that's a 6.
8 or under. That's an 8.
So another pin, so nothing.
Another pin, nothing.
Okay, so my next activation is the Venusian Ranger that just shot. So I will start by reloading their machine gun and then just scooch up here. And that is it.
And I'm actually going to use my pass token now, so it's back to you.
My next activation is the second. It will Mortant, and they will also move 5 inches twice. So they will move up here and over here. There we go. And that's the activation token.
Okay, my final activation will be the Undead Legionnaires, and they have the Group 3 ability, which means that I have to try and activate all 3 if I have 3 on the board, which I do. So all 3 of these will now activate at the same time. But I'll do one of them at a time. So first one here, I will do a move action up to 4 inches, which is over there. And then he will fire with his Kratak assault rifle. And I am within 15, but the short range is 12, so I go up to long range. Missile weapon is 10, I get -1 penalty. Now that you moved, I think I actually have clear line of sight. That would be a 9. That's a 1, so I make it. So a 1 means that it's a critical success, which gives a damage multiplier, which means that you have to make 2 tests for this damage. So what's your armor? Was it 22?
Yes.
12, so that's a 10.
Yep.
And you need to roll 2, and we'll choose the worst one.
So the first one is a 15, and the second one is an 8.
So the result is 15.
Yes.
And you needed, what was it, a 10?
A 10, yeah.
So you failed by 5.
Yes, which is 1 wound and 1 pinned.
Exactly.
So there we go. This is the token collector.
Poor ranger. Okay, and then we have the next Undead Legionnaire. I'm just gonna do a double move with him. So 4 inches and then another 4 inches, which will put him over here. And same thing with this final one in this group activation, another 8 inches, which will put him right there.
So I think I'd like to ambush there. My Venusian Ranger leader, I think, saw this happening, so he'll try to shoot. So it's just within 18 inches. He will use his shotgun. It's 15. And it's -2, so that's down to 13. And I think it's further -2 for the cover.
I have a defense +1, so you get an additional +1 to your test.
Okay, so 12 and below is what I need to roll. So it's a 5, so it's a hit.
Okay, Undead Legionnaires have 18 armor value.
The strength here is 11.
Okay, damage 11, that's a 7. And no other modifiers, I think. So 7 is what I'm going for here. Get a 20. So I failed that by 13, which would be 2 wounds and a pin counter, which means that he's dead.
Death. Right, so I have a third Venusian Ranger who is pinned. So I will start by removing the pin token by rallying. And I will then move up to 4 inches. So I think I will move over here. Yes, so I think I'll just reposition over
Exactly.
here.
Nice. All right, now we're at the end phase of turn 1, and we're not scoring any objectives this turn, so we're basically just going to remove all the activation and reaction tokens now. At this point I realized that I didn't use a single reaction during turn 1, which was pretty bad. I blame being distracted with filming everything. We're going to speed things up a bit now for the remaining turns, which means I can focus on the game a bit more. This turn I didn't get any pass counters since Erik only had one extra activation. I got a 9 for the initiative roll, but Erik got a 1. The Venusian Ranger leader started by moving twice towards the ruined wall. I then moved the Centurion and charged the Etoile Mordant trooper. The carcass suit caused an auto hit with damage 7 against her armor of 20, resulting in a TN 13 test that Erik succeeded with an 11, but the unit got a pinned counter. The Centurion then struck with the Scalax sword and a close combat of 13 plus 2 for the charge, so a TN 15 test. And I made it with a 2. Her armor was 20 and the total damage was 16 thanks to Fierce Charge, which meant a TN 4 test. Erik got a 17, so the trooper died. This gave me 1 VP through the Send a Message secondary objective. The Venusian Ranger HMG used Brace and then shot twice at the closest undead legionnaire and once against the one behind. With no modifiers, Erik got TN 14 and his first roll succeeded with a 9. With armor 18 and damage 14, I had to do a TN 4 test, but I failed with a 17 and the legionnaire was killed. Erik's second shot was therefore wasted and we moved on to the third shot against the final legionnaire. Erik hit with a 4, and with my roll of 18 for the armor, this one also died. I then activated the Necromutant Tormentor and moved it forward, but it was ambushed by the Blitzer operator. He shot with the MP103 SMG, which has burst 2, with a -1 for long range, so he got TN 12. And rolling a 2, Erik made it. With an armor of 22 and damage 11, I had to roll TN 11, but I got a 20. So the Tormentor was killed with that first shot before it could do anything else. The remaining Etoile Mordant shot with her Punisher handgun at the Necromutant trooper near the objective, and I chose to dive for cover. Her missile weapon of 12 was reduced by -4 for heavy obstruction, so the test was TN 8. And Erik made it with a 6. Due to dive for cover, my armor became 24, and with damage 13 I had to do a TN 11 test. But I got another 20, and the Necromutant died. She then charged the Centurion and stopped 1 inch away due to having reach 1. She struck at close combat 15 with a +1 for the Punisher short sword, +2 for charging, and -1 from the Centurion's defense, so the test was TN 17. But Erik managed to roll a 19 and failed. My Centurion reacted with a counterattack and his close combat 15 was reduced by 2 from defense, becoming TN 13. I made it with an 8. With armor 20 minus damage 14, Erik got a TN 6 test and he barely made it with a 6, resulting in a pinned counter. The Razid reloaded its weapon and shot 3 times at the Venusian Ranger HMG. The missile weapon 12 was modified by -2 for light obstruction and -1 for camouflage, so a TN 9 test. My first shot failed with a 12. The second failed with a 13. But the third hit with a 2. The armor of 22 was reduced by damage 15, becoming a TN 7 test. And Erik failed with a 9, resulting in another wound counter and killing the Ranger. Next up, the Redemption Assassin scaled this entire wall due to his 6-inch move combined with the gymnastic ability, which was quite cool to see. Then he shot at the Necromutant leader below with his missile weapon 15 reduced by 2 for light obstruction, so a TN 13 test. Erik missed with a roll of 15. Directly after this, the Necromutant leader rallied and then moved around the ruined wall. Finally, the Venusian Ranger trooper moved towards the edge of this ruined wall and shot at the Razid. He was just within short range, and his missile weapon of 14 got a +2 bonus from the Reside's defense, so Erik had to roll a test with TN16. And he succeeded with an 8. The Reside's armor of 25 was reduced by damage 12, so my test was TN13, but I got a 19, failing by 6 and resulting in 2 wounds and a pin counter. However, the Reside has 4 wounds, so it was still standing. Well, that was a really bloody turn too. Erik killed 4 of my units and I was able to kill 2 of his. We each got 2 victory points now at the end phase. I was able to get 1 from Send a Message, where my Centurion killed one of his Étoiles Mortantes. And then I got Hold Ground because none of his units was 4 inches away from my deployment zone or closer. Erik was also able to hold ground, so he got the 1 point from that. And then he was also controlling 1 of 3 objectives, whereas I had 0, which meant that he got 1 victory point for controlling the majority of the objectives. So as it stands right now, we have 2 points each. Let's move on to turn 3. For the initiative roll-off, I got a 12, but Erik got a 1, so he got to start once again. Bauhaus activated the reliability asset this turn, so any critical failures in shooting would not result in reload counters for Erik. Also, due to Shake It Off, I was able to remove the pin counter from the Reside. And with several units dead, I got 1 pass counter this time. The Blitzer operator shot his SMG with both shots against the Centurion, which used die for cover. The missile weapon 13 was reduced by -1 for long range, -2 for light obstruction, and -1 for defense, which resulted in TN9. Erik rolled exactly a 9 for the first shot. Thanks to subdermal implants and die for cover, the armor was 25, and with damage 11, my test was TN14. And I made it with a 9, but got a pin counter. The second shot also hit with a 6, and I made the second armor test with a 13. The Blitzer's second action was to shoot the same way again. Erik hit with a 5, and since I couldn't use die for cover this time, I needed a 12. Luckily, I made it with a 1. Finally, Erik's second shot missed with a 12. My Centurion rallied and then charged the Étoile Mortante trooper in order to get the charge bonus as well as Fierce Charge. His Carcass Suit's auto-hit once again resulted in a TN13 test, and Erik failed it with an 18, resulting in a wound counter. The Centurion then struck with Close Combat 15, -2 defense, and +2 for charging, which meant TN15. I actually made it with a 15, but during play we forgot to add the charge bonus, so we incorrectly ruled that I failed the test. The Venusian Ranger Trooper then shot at the Reside with a TN16 again, and Erik made it with a 14. For the armor test of TN13, I succeeded with a 9, resulting in a pinned counter and stopping the Reside from using counterattack. The Ranger used its next action to shoot again, but Erik missed with an 18. I activated the Reside and used the self-repair asset with a TN10 test and made it with a 1, allowing me to remove 1 wound counter. It then fired all 3 shots at the Venusian Ranger Trooper with TN9 again, failing the first with a 19 and getting a reload counter. The second test was also failed with a 10, and the third was another critical failure with a 20. My last action was to reload the weapon. The Redemption Assassin climbed down the ruin and charged the Necromutant leader. His Close Combat 17 was modified by +1 from the Mortis Blade and +2 for charging, so Erik got a TN20 test, which he made with an 11. Due to First Strike, the attack got a damage multiplier because the Necromutant leader had not been activated yet. Its armor of 22 was reduced by a total damage of 13, so my test was TN9. I rolled a 13 and a 3, so the 13 was chosen, which meant a wound and a pinned counter. But Necromutants are fearless, so despite having a pinned counter, it reacted with a counterattack. The Sectioner Bayonet gave a +1 bonus to the Close Combat rating of 12, but the Assassin had Defense 2, which resulted in TN11, and I failed it with a 15. I wanted another shot, so I activated the Necromutant leader and made another strike at TN11, but once again failed with a 15. The Redemption Assassin reacted with a counterattack and now got TN20 due to the Mortis Blade being vicious and the Necromutant being wounded. So the only way to fail was with a natural 20. Erik made it with a 13. Vicious also brought the armor test down to TN7 and I rolled an 8, resulting in the death of the Necromutant leader. Next, the Étoile Mortante trooper struck at the Centurion again with a TN15 and Erik got a critical success and a damage multiplier. The Centurion's armor of 23 was reduced by a total of damage 13, so my test was TN10. I first rolled a 2, but then I got a 17, resulting in 2 wound counters and a pinned counter. But the Centurion has 3 wounds, so he's still in the game. For its last action, the Étoile Mortante trooper then rallied. Finally, the Venusian Ranger leader moved up next to the trooper and shot at the Razid with his MP-105 handgun. The missile weapon 15 was reduced by -1 for long range and -2 for light obstruction, but got a +2 bonus from the Razid's defense, so Erik had to do a test with TN14. He made it with an 11. The Razid's armor of 25 was reduced by damage 12, so my test was TN13, and I got an 8, so nothing happened since it already had a pin counter. Alright, so that was turn 3. Quite the bloody round for me. I only have 2 units left now, the Centurion and the Razid. I was not able to kill any of Erik's units, although I was able to wound one of his Étoiles Mortantes. In terms of victory points, it's the same thing. I wasn't able to score anything this turn, but Erik was able to score 3 additional victory points. He got 1 for hold ground, since I was not able to go into his deployment zone or near it, but he went into mine with his Redemption Assassin. He also got 1 for the objectives. He's holding 1 of them and I still have 0, so that's 1 more. And finally, his Étoile Mortante that I wounded with my Centurion is still alive and engaged in close combat with the Centurion that has a higher DP than herself, so he was also able to score 1 point for the sacrifice. So right now it's 5 to Erik and 2 to me. Let's move on to turn 4 and see what happens. I had 2 pin counters and Erik was in the lead with 3 VP, so he got +1 to his roll. I got a 10, but he still won with a 3 that turned into a 4 and got the initiative for the 3rd turn in a row. I once again got 1 pass counter and the Razid removed its pin counter. Erik activated the Étoile Mortante trooper and struck the wounded Centurion again, this time with a TN19 test due to the vicious ability. Erik made it with a 16 and my armor test became TN6 because of vicious. I rolled a 17, so the Centurion died, denying me my last chance for send a message. The Étoile Mortante then moved into base contact with the objective counter. I moved the Razid forward and fired my first shot into the Venusian Ranger trooper and the rest into the Venusian Ranger leader. For the trooper, the test was once again TN9 and I rolled a 5. Erik's armor test at TN7 was failed with a 14, killing the trooper. The 2 remaining shots at the leader had TN7 due to heavy obstruction. I rolled a 14 and a 19, missing both and getting another reload counter. Erik then activated the Venusian Ranger leader and shot at the Razid. Without light obstruction, the TN was now 16. Erik succeeded with a 5, and I then rolled a 3 for the TN13 armor test. The leader shot again and got a critical success with a damage multiplier. For the TN13 armor test, I rolled a 9 and a 17, resulting in a further wound counter and a pinned counter. The Redemption Assassin charged the Razid, and his close combat 17 got +1 from the Mortis Sword, +4 from Vicious, +2 for charging, and +2 from the Razid's defense for a whopping TN26. So he could only fail on a natural 20. But he got a 10. The Ravaged's armor of 25 was reduced by a total damage of 17 due to vicious, so I had to pass a TN8 test. I was prepared for the death of my final unit, but I rolled a 2. We kind of forgot the Ravaged had a pinned counter from before, so I made a counterattack at close combat 14, -2 for defense, so a TN12 test. I made it with a critical success, granting a damage modifier. The Assassin's armor of 20 was reduced by the Ravaged's pure strength of 10, resulting in TN10. Erik rolled a 7 and a 20, so the Brotherhood agent was annihilated. We really didn't expect this to happen. It was a very cool moment. Finally, the Blitzer operator moved twice into base contact with the objective counter. Well, we just finished with turn 4 and it was another bloody one. What's left on the table now is the Ravaged with 2 wounds remaining, a Blitzer, an Étoile Mortante with 1 wound remaining, and a Venusian Ranger. That's it. Erik was able to score 1 victory point by holding the objective from the primaries, and I was able to score 1 from the hold ground because I was able to kill the Redemption Assassin by that lucky critical success from my side and the unlucky critical failure from Erik's side. So that brings Erik to a total of 6 victory points, and I have 3 as we move on into turn 5, the final turn. I had 1 pin counter and Erik was leading with 3 VP, so he got +2 to his initiative roll. I rolled a 10 and he rolled a 7, which turned into a 9, so Erik won this round as well. And once again the Ravaged removed its pinned counter. Erik started with the Blitzer operator who interacted with the objective counter. He had leadership 12 with a +4 bonus from the tactical ability, resulting in a TN16 test. Erik made it with a 9. The Blitzer then moved into cover. My one and only activation was the Ravaged, which started by reloading its weapon and then fired all 3 shots into the Étoile Mortante trooper, which was within short range. The missile weapon 12 was lowered by -2 from the trooper's defense and a further -2 for the evasive ability, so I had to pass TN8 tests. First, I failed with a 10. But then I rolled an 8. The Étoile Mortante's armor of 20 was reduced by damage 15, so Erik had to roll a TN5 test, and he made it with a 5, receiving a pinned counter. For my last shot, I missed with an 11. The Étoile Mortante trooper shot back at the Ravaged with her missile weapon 12 reduced by -2 for long range, but increased by +2 for the Ravaged's defense, so we were back at TN12. But Erik failed with a 17. I then reacted with the Ravaged and made a counterattack with TN8 again. I made the first hit with a 3, and for the TN5 armor test, Erik got a 15, so the Étoile Mortante finally died. The Ravaged might not have scored any VP, but at least it got vengeance. I mean, she killed both the Centurion and one of the Necromutants. Lastly, the Venusian Ranger leader shot at the Ravaged with another TN16 test. But Erik failed with a 17. He shot again, and this time he made it with a 6. For the TN13 armor test, I rolled a 7, so no effect on the Ravaged. Well, that's the end of turn 5. I was not able to score any more victory points, but I did get a little bit of a moral victory when I killed another one of Erik's units. Erik was able to get 1 more victory point by holding 2 of the objectives, while I had 0 still. And then we revealed which was our secret primary one, and we had both chosen the same one on the, what would it be? The right flank from Erik's side, so closest to the camera there. So he gets another victory point, which brings him up to 8. So 8-3 is the final tally. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
So what do you think? What's your impression of Warzone Eternal after the first game?
I liked it, and it was very nice and easy and smooth to get into, I think. It's always difficult to tell when you just look at the rules, because it's difficult to tell how the rules will interact and how complicated it will be. And we missed several rules, some we noticed, but we still had fun, and the next time we'll probably not miss as much and we can make other decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's always like that when you learn a new game. You're always going to make mistakes in the beginning. But I agree with you. I wasn't sure exactly how detailed or dense it was going to be with the rules, but I feel like even though it's a skirmish game and you have a lot of different rules for each unit and such, it didn't feel like we got bogged down. It felt like we could still play it relatively fast the further we got into the game, and you started to really know exactly which modifiers to look at and such. So I think it was quite fast paced there towards the end. And we were discussing too, like off camera, we were discussing the game, and we said like Erik really played it well when it comes to the objectives. You took one early on, and I tried to, on both flanks, I tried to get my Necromutants and Undead Legionnaires up to grab some of them. But you were able to shoot them down before they reached it or before they were able to interact with it. So I kind of lost my flanks where I had the weaker troops and only had my Razid and Centurion left in the middle. And they survived quite long, and they did some of the heavy killing, but they weren't able to score that many points and were not able to reach the objectives either.
At the same time, I think, I mean, yes, that is true. I think some of your flanks collapsed partially due to some very lucky rolls from me and some unlucky rolls to you.
Sorry to pause here, but I actually calculated the average of our rolls. I got 10.44, which is very close to the statistical value of 10.5 on a d20. Erik, on the other hand, got 9.33, so objectively speaking, he is correct that he did roll better than me. Okay, back to Erik.
There were some kind of strategic shenanigans of climbing walls and such along the flanks.
That was a cool moment.
Yeah, and it was fun, and I felt like sometimes it was more fun to do things that weren't necessarily the most points optimal.
Yeah.
But it's more fun to run and do things.
Like one of my favorite moments was when the Razid was attacked from behind by the Redemption Assassin, who would just, like you said, climb the wall, jump down, kill the Necromutant, and then ran up to get the Razid as well. But the Razid just turns around and bonks him in the head without any close combat weapons and totally destroys him. So that was quite a cool, WTF moment that we weren't expecting to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, I agree with you. It was fun. We had a great time, and we're looking forward to the next game as well.
Yeah, super.
So thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed that battle report, and hopefully we can make some more in the not too distant future. Please consider giving the video a like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. We'll see you next time. Good luck with your miniatures.